afternoon and welcome to week 2, day 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games. We have got 5 exciting series coming up today, starting with Norway versus Israel and going on through a day which I think we've described as sort of Titan team versus underdog team in most cases.
Yeah, I think that's how it's looking today. It's going to be interesting to see if those Titans can win. So far, not being that great. USA slipping to 0-2 yesterday, and no one's going to want to be in the bracket with them. There's only 12 teams in there.
Let's take a look at what they are competing for. The first stage of the tournament is 6 rounds of Swiss, followed by them being split, the remaining players being split into groups and having to go through 3-round dual tournament. Finally, the top 8 teams will be participating in the live finals at BlizzCon later this year.
Yeah, and as I was saying there, with 48 teams just going down to 12 teams on 0-2, one of which already is the United States. Nobody wants to take on Muzzy and the boys, especially when you need 4 wins to most likely get through to the next phase.
Yeah, right. So they can't afford to lose any more games, and they are not going to go down without a fight. Already, tiebreakers aren't looking good, so it's very important that the USA wins. Let's take a look at how the standings are overall at the moment. As we can see, the teams on the left have played already this week. The teams on the right have not. 2-0. Lorinda taught me through these.
Yep, Ukraine, Romania, New Zealand, China, Spain, and I'm going to mention Poland. Production thought I wasn't going to for a minute. Poland, which is where we are casting everything from, also on 2 and 0. Much delight of everybody around us.
Yeah, the big question mark, though, is, of course, the 0 and 2 group there at the bottom. And all of the teams on the right-hand side there, or rather all of the 0 and 1 teams on the right-hand side there, they're going to be playing over the course of today and tomorrow. They definitely do not want to be joining that bracket.
Yeah, do not want to be in there. The United States are just one of the big favourites for this tournament. Sottle doesn't lose prediction tournaments, so...
Speaking of prediction tournaments, should we take a look?
No.
I really want to take a look. Production, can we please take a look at the prediction that we have?
Let's not do that.
No. Yep, there we go.
Okay.
Gaskin winning 3-1 at the moment. I'm looking forward to joining him today after my team, Italy, have played.
Yeah, production doing really well on 2-1, and they're hungry for more later in this week. Raven, Sottle are doing really badly down at the bottom.
Good. Sorry, because I'm quite short, my line of sight doesn't quite... I actually couldn't see who the bottom name was.
It was Sottle. It was 1 and 2.
But I could see that. I'm sure there was a name underneath.
No, I didn't see anything. I can't see that far. Okay, today's schedule. Dan, take it away.
Israel versus Norway coming up first, as I said before. Then we have the current reigning Global Games champions, the Czech Republic, up against Indonesia. Following that, the production teams pick Hungary versus the Russian Federation. Then Bulgaria versus Italy. Yes, go Italy, come on! And finally, Brazil versus Greece.
Brazil versus Greece. Greece, one of the teams again. Well, both those teams are going to be interesting to see how they get on. 2 of the big teams from last year. Tomorrow, off stream, Argentina, Denmark. That's a big match. Belarus, Finland, Winland, and Austria, Switzerland rounding out the day there. We'll be bringing you updates from those matches, of course, as they go on, and you should be able to watch them on YouTube, on the Hearthstone channel, within 24 hours of them finishing as well.
Exactly. As with so far in this tournament, we'll be getting the live results on screen, filling you in as we get updated with them. But let's take a look at the teams representing in this first series today. Israel, Glacier, Hattel, Jonathan, and Falula. I mean, the big name there is Glacier, isn't that right, Lorenzo?
It is the big name there, but the rest of the team are coming on strong behind him after last year's performance as well. Hattel is like the community manager for the Israeli scene, which is actually quite a big internal scene. We don't see much of these players outside, but within Israel, there's a very tight-knit community. Jonathan is a very, very strong player, but he's just got back from military service, so work his way back in. I've been told, watch out for him. He is going to be doing a lot more going forward. And Falula he was late to the scene. He didn't start until Old Gods. Oh. But already is getting more and more good results. He's an ex-WoW player who just fell in love with Hearthstone because why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you indeed? Quick note on Norway now, while we're taking a look at the country. Something that Zorkfar has filled me in on a little bit late. I wanted to say this while that was on the screen. Ice cream, photos of eating and sleeping sums up Norway. Hashtag wine and win.
Wine and win.
That's
Zorkthar likes a good wine and he likes a good win. Not a fine wine, just he likes to wine.
Exactly. To be clear there, that's wine spelled W-H-I-N-E, isn't complaining.
The other important thing to know about this matchup is that a lot of these players are friends, especially Zorkthar and Glacier, who have formed a strong relationship. Zorkthar sort of being the evil genius behind a lot of Hearthstone and Glacier sort of coming through from last year. Let's have a look at how they've done the picks and bans. There's a lot of Quest Rogue in this one.
Both banned immediately.
Yeah.
Just to fill everyone in, if you've just joined us today for the first time, the way that picks and bans work in the Hearthstone Global Games, both teams pick a class that they do not want their opponent to play, they ban it outright. Then they choose two classes that they do want to play, that gets locked in. Then they ban two, then pick two, then ban one, then pick one, in that order that you see there. This isn't the order that they're going to be playing these games, this is just the order in which they have decided their picks and bans. And as Lorinda was just saying, both of these teams play Quest Rogue and they were both banned outright. Wow, that goes to show that it's been a very good pick.
I mean, it just is good against all the decks you're ending up leaving up. Hunter, Shudderwock, Evenlock, Malygos, Druid, you know, Mage, or Control Mage at least, Q-Block. It's just good against all these things. Priest. All the decks you might end up playing lose pretty heavily to Quest Rogue, and no surprise to me that A, they both brought it as they're adjusting to last week's meta, and B, they both had to ban it. And of course, again, Zorkthar and Glacier being friends, they won't have discussed this week, but they probably think in similar ways, and very similar lineups have been brought because of that.
So again, for those of you just joining us, the next phase of the Hearthstone Global Games format is the blind pick section. They now know which classes they are allowed to play, and they decide which order they would like to play them in without knowing what their opponents have brought. And there you go. It's going to start with Glacier on the
versus Zorkthar.
Zorkthar, his good friend, on the Hunter. And then going downwards, these are the upcoming matches in the order. Glacier versus Zorkthar. Okay, Lorinda, tell me a little bit about this relationship.
So Zorkthar is the leader, or the manager for Nordavind, formerly BX3. And Glacier is sort of one of the players that he talks to a lot. He talked to a lot of players forming the team, and I'm sure Glacier was up there somewhere because they're good friends. And again, just a good player. Zorkthar knows the good players. It's his job to know the good players. And Glacier, oddly enough, is a good player. So they see each other on pretty much every single tour stop, and Glacier sort of an honorary member of the Norwegian team in some ways, of course, playing for F2K, who are doing their own amazing thing.
I was going to say, Glacier is a member of all sorts of teams, F2K, Dusky Boys, Team Israel. Though one of the things Glacier did say to me when I reached out to him today is that over the last week, he's not spoken to Team Fate Karma and he's not spoken to the Dusky Boys. He did over the first week, not sure that it really worked out that well. They did end up losing. These guys are all 0-1 at the moment. So this last week, his sole focus has been the Hearthstone Global Games. Though it's still nice to see him representing with the Fade to Karma t-shirt. I really love the flag designs on that, I have to say.
Yeah, they do that for every anchor, right?
That's right, for Glacier, for Ball Control with the UK, and for Fino with Greece.
Yeah, he also, going back 2 or 3 months, I was talking to him about the Global Games, and he's excited this year because last year Israel, we blanked them completely. The interviews with Glacier were like, "So you won, well done." it's like, and then this year they've got the backbone of that team still together. They've got a year's experience. As I was saying then, a lot of these players have come back from military service or university, etc. And the team is a lot more of a team this year rather than just Glacier and some guys.
Right.
I think last year it wasn't quite that bad then either, but they've had a whole year, as I say, with the internal Israel scene to really get to know each other, and that will help a lot in communication. It will also help on the fact that Glacier can be a bit out there sometimes. Right. You know, maybe they'll be a bit more comfortable saying, "Hey, Glacier, don't bring that deck. Bring some good stuff," which is what Fate to Karma have been doing.
I was going to say, that's
well.
what you've been describing Fate to Karma this whole time as well. Glacier has been working very hard. Obviously, the anchor of the team, top 16 HCT Seoul, top 4 HCT Germany. He's been making the rounds. He's been at, I think, all of the tour stops this year so far.
Moving on to Norway. Obviously, not a lot to say. All members of Team Nordavind.
They're not a very good team, are they?
No, they're really, really good.
They are Lorinda's pick.
They are my pick, and they're my pick for a reason. I had first pick as well, so I just took them without blinking, basically. But Hunter is playing Japan this weekend, and I don't know where he is at the moment. Maybe he's had to travel, so traveling all that distance. Okay. Maybe he won't be 100%, maybe he will. He seems to travel a lot and win a lot, so it probably doesn't bother him too much, but just something to factor in.
Zorkthar is, I believe, the captain of the team we have playing, first and foremost. Not the anchor, obviously, that's Hunter Ace, for very, very obvious reasons, like having won 2 tour stops in the last few months. But Zorkthar has played 1,900 games this season alone.
Doesn't surprise me.
Just needs top 50 to reach playoffs.
Actually, it does surprise me because Zorkthar tends to get top 100 and then go, I'm going to talk to people about Hearthstone instead of playing, so I don't want to get salty.
He's the current Norwegian national champion. And for Hearthstone right now, he's never tried so hard at anything else in his life.
He really is giving it his all, particularly this year. But with BX3, before they merged with Valerenga to make Nordavind, and they were winning sort of Scandinavian championship, team championships over and over again back then. And players like Colbane, who you see in here, who you may not know so well, was like a founding member of that team.
Okay.
So a lot of these guys have known each other for a very long time as well. And that's why you can draw Keleseth on turn 2 so readily.
Keleseth on 2. Yeah, things are looking good for Norway here. They just need to... Well, they've got the Exo curve into. They just need a way of activating that, which... Worst case scenario,
Void Ripper works?
Void Ripper works. Worst case scenario, they can just play the cube on turn 5. They're looking good. My perspective of this matchup is that it's very difficult for the Shaman. They've got Shadowwalk in hand, so potentially have got that win condition there if they can live that long. The Hunter sort of sits there and does nothing over the first few turns and then explodes at some point to overturn 6, 7, and 8.
Of course, you don't really want to Void Ripper your own egg if you can possibly help it, because the whole point of the egg is it's there making 5/5s for you, and if you try and AoE those 5/5s, the egg then cracks and produces a 5/5 of its own that survives the AoE. So not really the ideal situation to be playing it that way.
So Israel are going to need to be playing a defensive game here. They've picked up Saonite Chain Gang, so the big question is, do they use the coin now? Do they need to save the coin for a Volcano to clear the board later? Volcano's a bit of an issue because of the eggs you've been talking about.
Stitch Tracker. Pretty handy, going to be finding an egg activator if he wants with this.
Stitch Tracker is a card that Sotul has been going on and on and on about.
Does he like it?
Over the weekend. He really thinks that Stitch Tracker is good at the moment.
Interesting.
It's there to dig out a weapon removal, it's there to dig out a Spellbreaker, or it's there to dig out a card that you want to play immediately. It just seems to be a very resourceful card. Let's see what Norway is going to take from it.
On the counter of that, 2/2 for 3 mana needs to be a very resourceful card.
Yes.
It's not really a board presence, it's almost like a spell.
Right.
Obviously the 2/2 can be handy, especially in conjunction with other things. And obviously it's a spell that is buffed by Keleseth, which helps significantly, as you can see right now. But it does have quite a big downside in terms of mana.
It does, it does. It's not a card that ideally they're going to want to play in the early game. However, with nothing better to do, it does come down. It's better than just hero powering. And now, tough choice for Norway. Argus is looking better immediately, but you can never have too many cubes against a control deck. Cubes are very hard to deal with.
Very difficult decision because their hand is cluttered for the next few turns. You want to get the Rexar moving a lot of the time, although then you give up your hero power. Obviously, you want to start cubing things. You want to start messing around with high mains.
Yeah.
But how they unlock this puzzle of playing these cards in an efficient order is actually going to be difficult, and whatever comes off the top of their deck obviously makes a difference, but I think it'll make a lot more difference than normal into how they organise this.
Honestly, for Zorkthar, I think he's just in such a fantastic position here. Taking the Savannah High Main means he's got something obvious to do on turn 6. You just slam down a 6/5. Before then, he can play the cube on the egg. He gets a 5/5. Even if the cube gets hexed, that then protects the Savannah High Main next turn. Honestly, I don't think Norway have anything to worry about at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good matchup, obviously, and you're right, I think they're looking in a good spot, but double Volcano Lightning Storm in hand for Israel does mean that this choice of High Main is going to work out well for them, because they are going to have extra resources going forward, and maybe delaying having to play Rexar and getting rid of this hero power, because you can get Shaman down low, but can you finish them if you don't get all your big stuff?
Well, I think as long as the hand is as plentiful as Zorkthar is at the moment, there's just no real reason to drop Rexar just yet, unless they'd like to clear the board. Later on, when the hand's looking a little bit more dry after the cube, after the Savannah High Main have been played, at that point, Norway are probably going to have to just, take a break, play Rexar, and then start some of the big stuff after.
Yeah, that explains the High Main pick really strongly,
exactly.
Basically, because that means you can delay the Rexar.
But honestly, just looking at this hand exclusively at the moment, it's difficult to even see if Rexar is going to need to be played this game. As you said, there is the double Volcano and the Lightning Storm present for Glacier, but again, these cards are so bad against the big Death Rattle minions.
Struggling for activators. I wonder if they're going to try... I mean, the cube gets hexed a lot. This is a big problem, but sort of Void Ripper the eggs that come out of the cube in the Christmas world where things go right very quickly is a reason to save on. And yeah, just making a board, because one thing this hand is not doing particularly well is getting through 2 3s right now. It's going to change very quickly, but just for the time being, they're a little bit awkward.
I wonder.
No situation, I don't think, that makes sense where they can set up an MC Tech here.
Honestly, Saronite Chain Gang, I think this game, the answer is not much longer.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, Israel clearly trying to play it as aggressively as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Grumble. It's just setting up for the Shadow Arc. We haven't seen a Life Drinker played yet.
I mean, do they care? So one of the questions here is, they know it's a bad matchup. Can they just try and make a million Shadow Walks on 9 and not be dead by then?
Well, they can't ever make a million, though, because Grumble's going to go off each time.
Mm-hmm.
So they can never have more than, you know, if they get it in the correct order, if they play both of these Saronites, they can end up with, I think, 4 Shadow Arc.
That's a million. It's not going to be a million now this Play Dead's been picked up, though.
And I don't...
Things are going to get naughty really quickly now with Play Deads and Void Rippers if Norway want it to.
Now the Play Dead's been drawn, and the cube eating up the egg isn't...
Right, so now you get double 5/5 with the Void Ripper this time around.
Right.
Now you've still got the cube as a backup plan. Now you've got some AoE protection. And this must be super tempting. Got to work out what they want to do about Grumble as well.
Quickly.
They're going in with a candle shot. They're going to say, okay, you volcano this. Good luck.
This looks like the least volcano-able board that I have ever seen. They can mind control tech this.
Cool.
And they can play both Sound Knights, and they've got Life Drinker as well. So actually, after all of that, Israel have the tools they need to win the game. It's just a question of getting there. So mind control tech can take a 5/5. Sound Knights can put 4 2/3s on the board. They're fine for now. They have a couple more turns.
Good to see Israel, like I was talking about, a lot more discussion this year than last year. They weren't not discussing last year, but I think sort of Glazer was such a star compared to the rest of them last year that they held back a bit. We're talking about that, or Sottle and Raven were talking about that yesterday with Radu.
Yep.
We are seeing Israel not scared to muck in, and that'll be partly testament to Glazer spending a week working with them.
Yes. I'm trying to work out if that was the worst target or not. Void Ripper. I think it may have been.
Quite likely.
Maybe the egg. Maybe an egg is a worse target, actually, because Israel actually had no way of getting rid of their own egg. If it was there, it'd just be blocking Shadow Walk turns.
This isn't easy either. This is sort of, again, unlocking that puzzle, but they've nearly done it. I mean, everything's gone pretty well, although it's gone pretty well for Glazer and Israel as well.
The Rexar would allow them to make the trade with the Candle Shot, but doesn't really do much else this turn. Grizzly, I guess, has more health than Highmane and allows him to squeeze in the hero power. I'm really finding it hard to look away from that Savannah Highmane, though. Okay.
This is a very good-looking card.
It is. It is.
Legendary that you can play 2 of is always nice. Haven't heard that meme for a while.
Quickly. Job done.
And now the overload train will probably begin for Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they can't afford to play a Lightning Storm and a Volcano. That's an issue. So where do they think their chances are better? Do they think that they have better chances of far-sighting into a second Lightning Storm? Or do they think they have better chances of getting a spell damage? Problem is...
Just roll 3 on all the 5/3s, 2 on both the eggs, and you are doing well. What could go wrong?
I don't think I've ever seen a Lightning Storm where...
Just a 1 in 32 shot.
Where the results have had to be that specific, but we're going to
1 in 32 to roll perfect on the 5 right-hand minions. See how it works out for them.
That's not good, is it?
Was that all 3s? On the ones that mattered, at least? It was all 3s. I think every single one was a 3. Oh, 1 lived.
Yeah.
1 lived.
So usually, that would be an incredible result.
I mean, it wasn't horrendous, but they are going to be under a lot of pressure, but... Yeah, it was in the top end of rolls they could get.
Yeah. So the key thing for Norway here is that they're going to need to play around the Volcano next turn. And again, Savannah Homemade does a fine job of that. But dropping both Terra scales wouldn't be that bad either, allowing them to fit in a hero power. But Homemade is Homemade.
It's 2-turn lethal as well, making sure that you get that in there quickly, because Israel have advanced their combo a fair way. And as we can see, there's no healing vein in the hand at the moment.
So Volcano would clear this if the Sandbiter trains into a 5/5 first, or trades into High Main, or trades into anything, it doesn't matter, but it will leave the 2 2/2s on the board. However, Israel can cast Glacial Shard on one of the remaining 2/2s, meaning that they will only be taking 4 damage this turn. The Glacier shakes his head, he's not happy about this.
Yes, I mean, they're dead to King Crush, right?
Yeah. Ooh! Dead to King Crush!
I think there's only one Grizzly in this deck from Norway as well.
That's not a King Crush.
So it was pretty much a 50-50 there.
And now Israel cannot cast the Shadow Walk because they overloaded on the Volcano last turn. Can't even play both Life Drinkers. If they cast Volcano now, then they won't be able to play Shadow Walk again next turn. And Shadow Walk,
they'll be dead.
Shadow Walk wouldn't be so bad. Yeah, Shadow Walk wouldn't be so bad here. If you think about it, like Micro Tech would take 1, 2 freezes.
Can't even work out a way where that world works.
Well, it doesn't because of Innovate. If they had 2 copies of Innovate, the world works.
Farsight into healing then, is that enough? Earthshot, not enough, and it's 1-0. No big surprise there. That's one of the bigger mismatches I feel in the current meta.
Shadow Walk Shaman versus Death Rattle Hunter?
I feel so, personally.
I agree. It's just, again, it's sort of what we were saying yesterday with the Taunt Warrior problem against the Hunter, is that, like, Brawls just don't do anything against these minions that just summon more powerful minions when they get destroyed. It's very, very difficult to stabilize. And Glacier did an okay job, it just wasn't good enough.
And that was a decent draw for Israel, though. So just showing, I mean, it was a good draw. Zul'Thar taking the high main helped a lot. It showed how that decision point made a big difference later on, putting all that extra attack on the board, making sure he didn't have to resort to playing Vexar, which keeps your hero power intact. And they snuck in some extra damage with that through the course of the game, and it just made it so that they were pretty much unbeatable there.
Should we see what's coming up next?
Sure.
It's going to be Hatul on the Druid versus Hunter Ace on the Priest. So this is Malygos Druid, I believe, from Hatul. Something some of the teams have been saying to us this week, actually, is that because Malygos Druid was just the first banned deck last week in most cases, one of the strategies we've seen is just leaving the Malygos Druid up and just slamming weapon removal into all of the decks.
Okay. I was talking about that yesterday, and I think there's weapon removal in this Priest, right? But if you put weapon removal in all your decks to beat one deck, that seems like... Okay, there's a bit more cube block this week as well, so it's not totally dead. But that feels like you're weakening your decks just to beat one deck, where you can just ban it and then have 5 slots open up in your other decks. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, I can see the argument. Twigs are... They're okay. Twigs, sorry. I'm thinking of Twigs. Weapon removals are okay against things other than the Twig as well. It's okay against, like, some Taunt Warrior things, some odd Paladin things. So they are decks that are Miracle Rogue things, odd Rogue things. So there are other decks where the weapon removal does do something. But you could easily make the argument that it doesn't do enough. I
mean, Anu's is a 3/3 for 3, as you all know. That's not a total disaster in terms of board presence against... Either, like, against aggressive decks, at least it's something you can put onto the... Against aggressive decks, you can put it down and at least try and eat up a minion or two. Against control, at least you chip away at their health total. But really, that could just be a good card
However,
instead.
Both of these teams have left Druid up, as both of the teams have decided to
well, because of Quest Rogue, in this particular, the way this is matched up, Quest Rogue was just going to annihilate almost whatever it ran into. You had to ban the Quest Rogue. That left the Druid up for easy pickings.
Something I find particularly interesting, actually, looking at the way that the matchups have lined out, or the way that the picks and bans have worked out, it's actually looking at the team's final pick, because that's the class that, in theory, they didn't want to play at all. For Israel, it's the Priest, and for Norway, it's the Mage. Now, I'm not surprised at all to see the Mage in that position, but Priest, it's been pretty good, hasn't it?
It has, actually. I'm just looking there, laughing at Hunter Ace. I think Zul'Thar's locked him in a room so he can't escape. So he has to play Hearthstone.
I don't think Hunter Race minds that too much, does he?
I don't think Zorkthar would mind doing that. Just, you're not going anywhere, nobody touches you. Joking aside, I think he's probably in a hotel in Japan somewhere.
That does make
Back
sense.
to the Priest. It's been doing pretty well.
Yeah.
It has been doing pretty well. It never feels like it's doing pretty well, but it is pretty good against all the decks that are being left up. And it has been interesting to see how the meta has adjusted this time around. I think we were all scared after week 1 that it was just going to be 3 weeks of the same thing. But seeing the Quest Rogues evolve into, again, one of these powerful matchups this time around, the teams have adjusted to the meta, and there is actually a meta that is worth adjusting to.
It's definitely not been 3 weeks of the same thing. It's definitely not been 2 weeks of the same thing anyway.
Right.
Can't talk for next week just yet, but things are still evolving.
And it can't be the same as both the weeks. It's going to be different to one of them.
That's true. That is not wrong. Now, let's talk a little bit about Hunter Race. Then we should probably get this out here, right? Winner HCT Seoul, winner HCT Italy, second place Toronto, second place. He's the tour stop man.
He really is, and he's made 4 finals, and he's made 4 top 16s, and just reached the final every time. Again, Hunter Race and Muzzy have both qualified for Japan. I've just alluded to that for Hunter Race, and that'll be on this channel, I believe, over the weekend.
Yep, I think so.
So if you want to see Hunter Race taking on Muzzy in a 16-player showdown, of course, they both qualified. If you're one of the people who thinks that Muzzy's the best player in the world.
He can't win another tour stop, can he?
Yeah, he absolutely can.
No,
he can win loads more tour
He can't
stops.
win another. That would be absurd.
He is absurd. He just wins everything he does right now. And again, last year we were warned to keep an eye on him. We were like, yeah, thanks, Zybez, shut up. He was quite right on this one.
We were last year. Hearthstone Global Games was the first time I'd ever seen Hunter Race, actually.
Yeah, and we were told he was a little bit of a... played a bit too quick.
We
and that
were
sort of
told
stuff.
that, yeah.
He doesn't do that anymore. He's an incredibly thoughtful player, and we've seen lots and lots of discussions about various plays that he makes.
All right, getting into the game, though. Wild Growth, Ultimate Infestation in hand. Hatul just missing a Nourish, and he's good to go.
Yep, he's in a decent spot. But these hands can... That's the thing with Druid. It does whiff occasionally, but in general, it just develops. You have always played from the top of your deck in Druid, and it's always looked like, they need this card. It just comes. You've got branching paths to draw cards if you have to. The versatility of that card is the hidden gem in this deck. The way you can force different wins out. The other thing here that's going to be interesting is because, like, the Dusky Boys and Norway, in particular, some of the best Malygos players in the world, but they're playing against Glacier, who is in that same category. So they'll be able to make high-level plays based on what's going to happen against them. It's not just like, let's outplay our opponent. As we see Denmark taking a 1-0 lead against Argentina.
Team Hoy and Hoy.
Hoy and Crane. All there from last year. Actually, no, Hoy was there last year and Crane, but that's it. Right, Wild Growth on 2. It's going to be another Wild Growth that came off the top, by the way. Next
Something is curious to me about Israel's deck list here. Okay, you know that players started adding Starfire to the list at
Yep.
one point. Am I right in thinking that the most common card to cut for the Starfire was Faceless Manipulator?
I think so, yeah.
Israel are playing both,
Okay.
which makes it pretty greedy.
It is a bit... How often do you actually see the Faceless win the game?
No, not very often.
Because, I mean, going back a month, it was just like, I'll kill you with my Faceless Twig combo. But I find these days that with everyone playing weapon removal against
Yeah,
Malygos
exactly.
now, you don't get the Faceless nonsense going on so often, which is why some people cut it. But like you say, Israel are covering all bases and playing both here.
But something that is also worth talking about when it comes to the Malygos Druid is that Faceless isn't only used to win the game. It's used to copy the minions their opponents played and then naturalize their opponent's minions so that it's just yours now. It's used to copy a Lich King for several Death Knight cards, which, you know, themselves can in fact win the game. So Faceless Manipulator does have other uses as well. It's difficult to work out exactly what they've cut on the fly like this, but they're also still running Alexstrasza, still running the Lich King, still running Ultimate Infestation. No Tyrantus, which we've seen some of the players running.
Yeah, I think that is in some of the decks we're going to see later today. And the chip damage in this deck is getting more and more important. We've seen a lot of situations. We saw it with Hunter Race last week when they beat the Mage. Yeah, they beat the Mage. Forcing through a damage here and a damage there suddenly takes the pressure off your Malygos to win on its own. And so if you can get some sort of board and just chip away for bits and pieces, counting is far more important than normal with this deck, and more important than you'd expect with it being viewed as a combo deck.
Something I'd like to point out here, as again, we have Hunter Ace, arguably the best Hearthstone player in the world playing right now. He is going to have some pretty big reads on Hatul's hand due to the fact that Hatul just played Branching Paths and Armored Up twice.
Sure.
Like, that is not an ordinary play for turn 5. He can deduce a few things from that. One is that there's Ultimate Infestation ready to go, because that's the only reason that they wouldn't want the card draw here. And two, there's a Spellstone in the hand worthy of an upgrade.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a fair estimation. Obviously, if they possibly can play against this deck, you want as much armor as possible, but you would like to get it after you've got rid of an opposing board, so
Exactly.
you keep that armor. That way that Alexstrasza is a little bit sort of negated from you. Obviously, with this with the Druid deck, if you can buy some time against the Priest, then that is everything, because you do have quite a lot of damage you can set up, and if you've got more time to set it up, you're good. Obviously, they know about the Ooze, so they can't rely on the twigs. They are going to have to try and get bored at some point to get some damage sneaking through.
The reason I wanted to point all of that out immediately, though, was because Hunter Ace had a decision to make with his Shadow Visions, and just the fact that he
waits for no
will
one.
probably known there's an Ultimate Infestation in hand will have affected the choice that he made. No extra Mind Blast, though, which is a slight issue following all of that armor gain. As you were saying, more armor against Control Priest, the better.
But
however, Hunter Ace is able to just start hitting the face with this Twilight Drake now.
yeah, and from his side, obviously he knows he can deal with Twig. He has the Ooze in his hand. He knows this, because that's how having your own hand works. And taking the Divine Hymn means it's going to be very difficult for that chip damage I've been talking about to exist. And which means they can just attempt to run Israel out of stuff entirely.
Coin and Innovate and Malagos in hand. So the problem is Hatul is probably going to have to play one of these 0-mana cards to set up for the Ultimate Infestation. However, having 2 mana cards in the hand after a Malagos gets played can be the difference between casting a Death and Decay along with the Malagos and not.
Okay.
So Malagos, Coin, Innovate, Death and Decay is an option if he has both of these mana.
I mean, spreading Plague into Spellstone the Acolyte doesn't look great, but
No.
it's a way of dumping the Spreading Plague. Do you ever get a better one? Just going for the Malagos now.
I mean, how does
Glazer.
Norway deal with this?
Glazer's face is like, let's just do this. I don't know if it's right or not. Sometimes you hear the pros say, like, I don't know if it's right, but it looks good to me, it feels right, let's do it.
The only way of getting rid of this is Psychic Scream, and that only puts it back in the deck, so Hatul's no further behind than he was before. Dropping Malagos last turn was a very nice play. Obviously, the Twilight Acolyte Kibar Shadow Priest combo is a thing, but not until turn 9.
This goes back a little bit to what I was saying, look at Hunter Ace's face here, to what I was saying about them knowing each other.
Okay.
Like, if anyone else does this, you know they've got a handful of damage, most likely. But Hunter Ace knows that Glazer's capable of doing this just for board presence and maybe some extra damage here and there.
I wouldn't like to talk about what Glazer's capable of, especially if I was Hunter Ace.
He's a very quiet one. So Psychic Screaming, as you pointed out, puts it back in the deck. Hunter Ace will almost certainly have the read that that was a weird play, so Ultimate Infestation could well be on the way. It wasn't a bad play at all, but...
So I guess the question Hunter Ace has to ask himself is, how much damage can that Malagos really do? Can I out-heal it? Can I afford to leave this up and deal with it over the next 2 turns at some point? Maybe even Twilight Acolyte Kibar Shadow Priest it on turn 9. The answer is, no, I cannot afford to do that. We're talking potentials of swipes, Starfires, Ultimate Infestations, Moonfires, etc. It's just not worth the risk, and he, I think, correctly shuffled it back into the deck. And now Hatul's just going to draw it again.
And that's just a win for Israel. Not the game, but the situation. Yeah. That's one of the small sort of battles has been fought. And Israel have managed to get board presence out of it. They've managed to get one of those Psychic Screams basically doing nothing, because they're in no hurry to kill the Priest. Although killing them with this lot would be nice. And now look at the reload that Israel have generated.
Israel are playing a really nice pressure game here. Norway going to struggle to deal with these minions, even if he had Shadow Reaper Andor, and Hunter Ace could only deal with the 5/5. Cards like Holy Fire, which kind of need to go to the face, especially if Israel are gaining more and more armor, aren't any good. Again, it's a perfect illustration of why Malygos Druid is such a strong deck. It doesn't just win off of the Malygos win condition. That's not how this deck works. The deck has lots of different ways of putting things on the board very quickly, spreading plagues plus Tyrant, Ultimate Infestation plus Tyrant, dealing damage to the face with Ultimate Infestation first. Lich Kings, Alexstrasza's, it's not just Malygos, that's not the only win condition.
Awkward looking clear here for Norway, but lobbing a Primordial Drake in the way was very weak to naturalize. It would have resulted in a burned card. But this works, it gets the job done, and as always with Psychic Scream, of course Malygos just reappears. This time, like you say though, the way of dealing with it is there. They've managed to survive those extra 2 turns they needed to. That's why the screen was so important.
Yeah, well, exactly. This turn, Hatul can't exactly just drop Malygos because then it gets stolen. And then, although Hatul can still win the game, it's well, he can't deal with Hunter Ace's Malygos at that point. That's the issue.
And the onus is on Israel to get this done. They've bought themselves the time, but the other clock that is ticking is that number on the right-hand side of your screen, 17 versus 14. If Israel run out of threats, when that number runs out, they will lose the game just because they will lose in fatigue. Or at least because of fatigue. A lot of damage between now and then, though. It's up to Israel to make sure they time it well. Yeah, this is a lot of armor. Important they play the twig as soon as possible. It's possible that your opponents don't have the ooze, but
62 total health.
That's a lot. That's a big number of health.
And it's the reason that the priest is never just gonna deal with the druid with its sort of natural win condition. The priest has to get stuff on the board and be using that hero power. Hatul sort of has to not play stuff on the board because he doesn't want his stuff stolen and then played against him.
Priest kind of has 18 armor. If this goes all the way, they've got that divine hymn plus the other 2 in the deck.
Yeah.
So they have some coming up. So it's not quite as lopsided as the numbers on the screen make it look. But yeah.
It's not. However, Malygos is easily capable of dealing that much damage in one turn. It's not armor that's sort of there as a safety net. It's armor that Hunter Ace actually has to cast, spend mana crystals on, and opt to increase his health by.
Another thing he won't want to take is a spreading plague and branching path to the face. That's a way that Israel can sneakily get some damage.
Bye-bye ooze. Hatul and Team Israel will have known that was coming. There was no way this weapon was not getting oozed within the next 5 turns.
Yeah, and interesting that Norway decided, well, it's not interesting, it's fairly obvious, they decided not to do it immediately. And now, how would you deal with an Alexstrasza if it was just played right now?
You'd play Twilight Acolyte, Cabal Shadow Priest, and hope there's no lethal on the other side. And again, usually there isn't. Malygos struggles to deal more than 15 damage, or rather more than 12 damage in one turn. I mean, as we can see, Hatul could fit in the hero power here, but we're still only talking 13 damage. That's not quite 16 yet.
Both sides wondering where their Death Knight is. Have we said that before about any Hearthstone game?
No.
No. Obviously, if you start hitting your opponent in the face first, that's going to help a lot, and Death Knights do that really well.
Time waits for no one.
Interesting, when the rope started burning, everybody on the Israel team started to go quiet and leave it to Glazer.
It gets to the point where it's like, yeah, okay, we could play around the Cabal Shadow Priest, we could play around the Twilight Acolyte, but we just never win the game if we play it that way. So they're going to go for it. They're going to be... Does Hunter Ace even steal this? Maybe it's better to save those cards for the Malygos later and actually Holy Fire and trade the 3/5.
I prefer the Holy Fire play.
Yeah, trade the 3/3 rather.
Yeah, I was going to ask, but I didn't like to pull you up on. Oh, just give away a couple of points of stats amongst friends from this highly technical matchup. But what do you do with the rest of your turn?
Does it matter too much?
It doesn't matter a lot. I think what Norway are trying to achieve is to keep a handful of cheap stuff so they get more pings from Anduin, but they're trying to keep on 7 cards so that a single naturalize doesn't hurt them. And some point they're going to get to the point where double naturalize hurts them, so only keeping 1 minion about might be a big deal as well.
The issue is with the play that I described earlier, the stealing the Alexstrasza play, to anyone wondering, is that as far as Hunter Race is concerned, this Alexstrasza only comes down if Hatul has something to follow it up with. So the fact that Malygos is in hand has got to be under their consideration. There's no other way of dealing with the Malygos. However, they've gone for it anyway. I guess, actually, no, with the minions on the board, they can deal with Malygos.
Right.
But Malygos can deal with the minions rather than dealing face damage this turn. So we could see Malygos naturalize Moonfire a minion, Moonfire another minion.
Primordial Drake also deals quite well with an opposing plague, should it come down.
Yeah.
It leaves you some things on board, and you get to Primordial Drake Divine Him to get all your things healed up.
Right.
And so that's another card, because that is another card that could threaten later on to get some damage through.
Okay, so this is wasting a lot of damage, but yeah, Israel could drop Malygos, naturalize the Alexstrasza, Moonfire the 4/5 and the 8/4, leaving just the 2/3 attack minions on the board. From what we can see in Hunter Ace's hand, he then can't deal with the Malygos, and then from next turn, it can be Faceless, Coin, Starfire, and then he can start dealing loads of damage.
Israel do know, though, that Hunter Ace wouldn't make that play if he can't deal with the Malygos.
Sure.
Well, at least if he doesn't think he can deal with Malygos.
That's the thing, right? If you're planning on dealing with the Malygos with these minions, Israel can get rid of most of them.
Second Divine Him. Lots of damage firing in from all directions here. Hunter Ace's ability to go low on health and not panic is something that has seen him win these tour stop semi-finals and finals a lot of the time.
Well, this is where what you said earlier really comes into the game, right? Like, Hunter Ace's health is a lot higher than it looks right now. Holy Fire, double Divine Him in hand, and Hero Power to play every single turn. He's going to get himself right out of range.
And these minions are all going to come back to life.
Yeah.
None of them die to the Malygos. Well, one of them dies to the Malygos, but they don't have to. Heal them back up as well as yourself. The Malygos is gone for good. You've got a board, and suddenly everything is looking hunky-dory.
So I think the problem with the play I described before is that it wasn't a game-winning play. That was, okay, I put Malygos down, maybe he can't deal with it. The play that Israel went for is, okay, this just wins the game if Hunter Ace can't deal with it, and if he can't heal himself. Like, he has to deal with it and heal himself in order to then survive. Unfortunately for Hatul, Hunter Ace was able to do both, and now things are looking bad for Israel.
And the problem they had was, first of all, I mean, they had a good idea that Hunter Ace would have a way of dealing with it.
Right.
Let's face it, but it's not going to get better if you wait. You spend that time thinking about, okay, how do we deal with this board and set up a Malygos later? What? And then you look at your hand and you look at what's going on and you're like, we don't? Let's just get this damage down now and hope it's a bluff. Because at this level, obviously, Hunter Ace might make that play knowing that Israel know, and therefore maybe it's a bluff. But sort of final push here, it's spreading plague onto its friend, the party helper, the leader of the band.
The guy with the boom bots, right?
The guy with the boom box, not the guy with the boom bot. He's coming next month.
My apologies.
Time waits for no one.
Got confused again. Now having to just make the widest board possible. But now a Psychic Scream would just end the game.
I mean, Israel have to go all in. They have, again, the Psychic Scream will turn up. And if you're Psychic Scream here, there is a chance you're winning Fatigue as well.
Okay.
No, I don't think you do, but it changes the equation again. At the moment, the equation is that if Israel do not kill Norway, Norway just win. The Death Knight's an issue here. Whoever draws out first will still get some advantage. But as it stands, it looks like Norway have cleared up a giant percentage of the issues here. Shadow Visions and Divine Hymns are going to come together here to create all sorts of silly.
I just wonder which one Hunter Ace is going to want to go for here. Shuffling all of these useless minions into Israel's deck.
But shuffling other minions in later might be a thing. No, he just wants to
draw more cards. Get to his Anduin faster.
Ordering of the Divine Hymn was a thing here. Just wanted to see how that worked out. Did he get them all in? He did.
Of course.
Obviously, Branching Paths was on their mind there.
He's Hunter Ace. Of course he got them all in. Uh-oh. So now Israel can just trade both of those into the Cabal Shadow Priest and play 4 more Spreading Plagues. If he drops the Lich King this turn, it does just get destroyed. But unfortunately, I think we've reached the stage in the game where, regardless of which turn the Lich King comes down, it will definitely be destroyed immediately, every time.
Yeah, it seems likely, doesn't it? Although, Israel have the right to believe that Hunter Ace has got through a decent amount of his removal here. I just get the impression Hunter Ace is not even talking about the game at this moment. He's back on it now. I think there's a moment of them being happy about how their plays have worked out.
Again.
1, 2, 3. He's counting how many tour stops he's reached the final in. Look at this. 5 next week. Yeah, we got you, Hunter Ace.
Time waits for no one.
Team Norway believed that they played almost perfect Hearthstone last week, with the only play they're not certain about being the one that Slottle pointed out
right.
to show earlier this week. They weren't sure that it was correct to UI the face rather than the minion, but otherwise they said perfect Hearthstone last week. You can't win them all, but they don't plan on being the only one for long.
And I'm sure Zorkthar used those exact pretty words. Zorkthar, not the most tactful when he feels that something went against him sometimes. He is just like basically a Boom Project guy. He's just insane, mad scientist. Take all these players, stir them together, see what comes out. And he's been very successful. Look at how Nordavind have been going. Look at this match that's in progress now.
I mean, I'm a little bit concerned. Someone's actually filled our vials here at the studio with some sort of mysterious liquid.
I think that was Sottle.
I'm sure I saw Raven drinking some earlier.
That would explain a lot. Slowly but surely, just running Israel out of things. And this all stems back to the ooze in the deck. Right the way back there, I've been critical of tech cards in decks in this format, but this has worked out great. Even the presence of the ooze in the deck meant that Israel had to go for things earlier than they would like to have. They couldn't just tootle along, sort of hitting face with the twig. They had to preemptively expect the twig not to do its thing.
Learned up. Tootle.
Yes, it's a train station.
Okay, where?
It's somewhere near Pudding.
Pudding?
Yeah, I think so. I'll have a double thanks. 2 slices. Israel now reduced to using their damage spells as removal. And that's always a bad sign with any deck that's trying to deal damage. Their last bastion of hope is just to get the Lich King to stick around, but how? From where they're sat, maybe the Acolyte Cabal isn't in hand. But
They're having to branch it out just to allow for the trades here. This is their best hope, yeah, of getting that Lich King down and getting it to stick next turn.
they've seen the Divine Hymns used as well, so they have the right to believe they have some sort of health advantage, I guess, but obviously Alex Straza kind of tidies that up.
Best case scenario is, like, Norway heals up the Cabal Shadow Priest, trades it in. Next turn, Israel drops the Lich King hero powers down the Cabal Shadow Priest and innovates out the Spellstone to deal with whatever else Norway play. But that's it. That's best case scenario for Israel. But as we can see, there is the second Twilight Acolyte and the second Cabal Shadow Priest in Hunter Ace's hand, ready to go.
Just the little things that they do, Norway. I think this hand size has been almost precisely 7 for almost the entire game, which is the most cards you can keep without Naturalize over sort of drawing you one.
Right.
So you're keeping back as many options as possible without it being a disaster. Just these bits and pieces, things we haven't been able to highlight while we're trying to analyse the game at the same time.
Yep.
All these little bits are all factored into every play they're making.
I must consider.
And Norway aboard. They just win the game.
Norway aboard. Time to kill Israel.
I'll tell you what, this Alex Straza does a pretty good job of preventing the Lich King from sticking.
It does.
First thing Hassel did then is check the spells.
Yeah, how many more armors do I need to make this into a card that works with swipe?
And the answer is too many for your hero power this turn. I don't think it's actually been I don't think there's even been 1 armor since that was drawn. I think that's at 3.
I know he's winning at the moment, but Hunter Ace is finally starting to look comfortable on camera.
Yeah.
Because even in Italy, when he's already come 2 second places and 1 tour stop win, he was still kind of nervous before the final and still looked a little bit edgy on camera to me.
Yeah.
He's finally starting to accept I might be quite good and people don't judge me too harshly. It's taken longer than you'd expect.
People actually think I'm quite good at Hearthstone now.
You are, Dan.
Not me. Nobody thinks I'm good at Hearthstone. My mum does.
Yeah? Does she play?
Time waits for no one.
Cool. All right, Lich King, last gasp. Can Israel not only defend but also find something superb? I don't know what something superb would even be here. Frostmourne, maybe? Just for some more damage?
Doompact's not the best one at all. This game is just like Doompact is okay in fatigue, but this game just never gets to fatigue. As Hunter Ace doesn't just deal with the Lich King, just takes it for his own. He's taken Malagos, he's taken, or rather he took Alexstrasza earlier, he's now taken the Lich King. Now he's got the Frostmourne, that's the exceptional Death Knight card you mentioned before. This game is looking like it's dramatically reaching its conclusion.
Yeah, trying to find any way they can stay in this. And I think what normally happens here is you nourish in case you've done something silly and forgotten an important card, and then you concede.
What to do?
Glazer's trying to figure out a way where they can still win. What have they got left? They've got Branching Paths, which is 12 armor. They've got Malfurion. Presumably. There are Death Knights in these decks, right?
Who even knows anymore, Lorinda? Who even knows?
I'm almost out of cards.
Time to check.
I'm pretty sure there is.
You know, I was assuming there was. Yep, there it is.
Yep, definitely Malfurion in this
Always
deck.
terrifying as a caster
No.
when the card you've been talking about for half an hour
Now,
is
how
the
about
bottom
Anduin?
card.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
2015 Hearthstone. No Death Knights.
Whoa. Game? Hello? Lich King? Death Knights?
Yeah, they're in there.
Heroes? Dr. Boom? Please? Something happen?
Dr. Boom. Everybody's ready for the return of Dr. Boom. And his mini-bots. Well, we're looking at this and we're looking at each other thinking, please kill him.
6 damage on board, 2 Mind Blasts in hand, that's 16. Frostmourne is another 5. And Norway should really struggle to lose this game. What they're trying to do is work out that one little percentage point.
And you saw it there, they went to heal the Shadow Priest to protect it from swipe, and they're not sure if the 2 to their own face or protecting the Shadow Priest is the best way to never ever lose.
But this Frostmourne sets up the 2-turn lethal nicely. If that swings into the face once, then that, the board or the weapon with the Mind Blast will be finishing the game next turn. What could they possibly be thinking about?
The Dr. Boom card could be something, maybe an opposing Frostmourne with a swipe still in hand, a UI still in hand.
You realise you just said the Dr. Boom, right?
Did I say the Dr. Boom? Dr. Doom Pact? I don't know. There's Malfurion. Israel, infestation their own face for so much damage it's going to kill them. And 2-0 to Norway.
Yeah, not a good start for Israel at all. Already 0-1 in the Hearthstone Global Games twist. Mason said to me earlier today, he's looking at the deck list, he believes that they are favoured slightly. It's pretty much a sheer mirror match. However, they have the techs that are favourable over Norway's. It's not worked out so far. 2-0, not the way they wanted to start the series.
Yeah, the one difference is they have an aggro mage in their lineup as opposed to a control mage, which, like you say, it's a slight edge because it's just better against the likely decks you're going to play against. It gave them some sort of chance. But then as soon as you ban Quest Rogue, you lose a lot of that edge anyway.
Yep.
So not a lot in it at all, but 2-0 down. Can they come back, do you think?
I never want to count a team out in the Hearthstone Global Games. We have seen reverse sweeps. We've not seen many 3-0s. That's the one thing that we've not seen much.
We haven't, actually, no.
So I wouldn't want to sit here and say, oh, yeah, no, Norway are just going to win the next game as well, because based on the history of the Hearthstone Global Games, that is unlikely. Here we go. Next game coming up is going to be Falula on the Hunter versus NTR on the Druid. And I believe Norway's Druid was also a Malagos Druid. They had pretty much identical lineups.
Yeah, I think they were very, very similar. Let me just take a very quick look at my notes.
Different text. I mentioned before that Israel's Malagos Druid was running Starfire and also Faceless Manipulator. Norway's is running Faceless but no Starfire.
Yeah.
Also no Tyrantus, which is, again, something we have seen a little bit this week.
And it's interesting to me they are going with that route because you would feel that in this expected matchup, maybe the extra damage to face in the expected sort of mid-range meta, I keep calling it slightly erring towards control, that they'd bring the damage spell, not the faceless, but that's not what they're going with.
We'll see how that goes. As I said, Glacier did believe that across the board they had better decks against Norway's decks than Norway had against their decks. We're going to give the players a few seconds to get ready for the next game. We'll be back with more Norway versus Israel after this. Just a little bit concerned because just as that break was coming to an end, the production team said an area that the Murloc bites.
I'm going to feed the Murloc some of that at some point, see what happens.
I'm really not sure why he's there on the desk, but anyways, we'll try.
I'm not going to move him.
Try and ignore him. Welcome back to Norway versus Israel. The score is currently 2-2. Norway really taking a strong lead here. Next up, NTR versus Falula. It's going to be Hunter for Israel versus Malagos Druid for Norway. And now, this is going to be Israel's big chance to come back into the series. Hunter should be the favorite here.
It should be the favourite there. Did you see Falula there just taking a big sort of sigh or big intake ready to steel himself up for this?
It's a lot of pressure.
It's interesting because he's a streamer, he's a host, he's a caster,
I must protect
he's
no
a
one.
student. He does basically everything, and he's saying that next year he's going to be even better. Obviously, I said earlier he didn't start even playing until
He's also an
Old
innkeeper.
Gods. He's a
Innkeeper.
okay, so he definitely should be used to dealing with Zorkthar and the boys.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Oh, NTR has Wild Growth in his opening hand, but Israel has Houndmaster Shore, Devil's Soul Egg, and Play Dead. It's not looking like the worst opening hand I've ever seen for Oh, what is going on?
Here's some mana. Please make cards.
Job done.
NTR, the sometimes forgotten member of Nordavind, but quietly took a top 16 at Italy. He didn't play that much at the start of the year in terms of the standings, but as soon as he started getting into the events, he's already placing pretty well.
He was the Norwegian national champion last season.
Okay.
So Zorkthar is currently.
And most of these are, as I said before, Norwegian national champions anyway, because they played with BX3,
Yep.
which became Nordavind, and they just kept winning that event.
Yes.
So yeah, NTR, probably the player that you'll hear less about than you should over the coming months because of Hunter Ace's successes.
Okay, look, as excited as I want to get about this start from Norway, they've got the Wild Growth, they've got the second Wild Growth, they've got Nourish. That's exciting, sure. Even Malfurion to curve into, Arcane Tyrant to play for free, whatever. I'm looking at Falula's hand right now. Devil's Soul Egg, Play Dead, Houndmaster Shore, Savannah Highmane into Canterbury right now.
They are the cards he has in his hand.
Yeah, I've just listed his cards, but what I've also listed are some of the best cards that he could possibly have. And I think this game is potentially going to be an illustration of just how good Death Battle Hunter can be, even against a start as perfect as this one from Norway. Okay, hang on a second, slow down. No, that tips the scales. Forget everything I just
Does
said.
it?
Norway wins this.
Interesting.
I'm joking.
It's just to see how this race goes now. No, NTR just absolutely hilarious. But you'll know the threats that could be coming, and they are plentiful as well. Not messing around here. No silence to be worried about, so just get the egg down. Next turn, you can Shore and Play Dead. Hit for 5.
NTR
Two.
literally has drawn all of his ramp cards already. All of them.
This is actually silly.
Everyone in the deck and Ultimate Infestation. I was completely ready to say, Death Battle Hunter, you know what? You're going to show what you can do against one of the best possible Druid hands. Didn't expect it to get better and better and better.
That's what Druid does. That's why it's so silly. Its hands get better because the good cards are in the deck, and if you get the ramp, you can play them.
That all being said, Ultimate Infestation isn't playable this turn without an Innovate, and actually Houndmaster Shore, coin Play Dead, charge the 5/5 into the 4/4, isn't looking bad at all.
It's looking pretty good. I really hate it when I can't play my Ultimate Infestation on the 4th turn. It just upsets me strongly. 5th turn, I guess. Right, so as you were saying, the play here, everything starts charging. And NTR, he's just frozen in time with how that went down. He was looking pretty happy until then.
What's great about this as well is that even if Norway was able to play Ultimate Infestation this turn, they can't actually deal with Houndmaster Shaw with it. So it's going to continue to cause a ruckus.
Causing a ruckus indeed. Trying to work out if there's any potential mileage in just facing their Shaw. But Malfurion is so much better than all that.
Very
Not a very easy way of dealing with the poisonous in this deck either.
precisely hero powering first to get that 1 damage into the Devil's Sword. And yeah, as you said, as with the poisonous. Well, Sour Knight Chain Gang is looking like a good solution to this problem.
It is.
Braxar would have been even better, obviously, if you play it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not playable because you're not Druid and you don't have 10 mana already, which is ridiculous.
Both of these opening hands were just completely insane. Like, both of these hands would have easily won any other game of Hearthstone whatsoever. Yeah.
But who is going to win as they slug it out here? Because at some point this will tip against the Hunter, but not yet.
So the issue with Ultimate Infestation this turn is that the 5/5 that gets created can just be traded into by a Savannah Highmane, as Houndmaster Shaw stays alive if Ultimate Infestation gets played. That's what Norway are going to be thinking about. Possibly they have to naturalize the Shaw first. Maybe they can nourish, see what they draw, then naturalize. But Ultimate Infestation, as tempting as it is, might not be corrected.
Yeah, I hate it. Always very wary saying that in a line on a cast, but I was looking myself at how difficult this is going to be for them.
Decided to do it though. Ultimately, the pros outweigh the cons, and Moonfire picked up off the top will make it all worthwhile.
My turn is not.
Yep, 5 outs. 21 out of 21 gives you a very good chance of hitting it. 10 outs because you've got 2 of them, effectively. I know the maths is not correct, but it works out around 50-50 if you do the very quick and dirty version.
Okay. Denmark taking their second win there against Argentina.
Yeah, and that's bad news. It's obviously bad news for Argentina. They're 2-0 down, but Argentina not having the best start to this tournament. They were another of the teams we're highlighting as potentially very powerful here.
Yep.
So a shame to see them going 2-0 down, but it'd be a shame whoever loses that match so early on.
Norway just spoiled for choice here. They could drop the Lich King. It potentially stays alive.
This is a turn where they need to plan how they're going to win the game. Trading and spreading plaguing, for instance, putting some stuff down buys them time. And time might be a thing they need a lot of. But if you're going to do that, do you want to face as the 6/5? Or do you want to be like a Malygos combo?
I sort of disagree about the time argument, because they have 10 mana and Falulor has 6. The more they can do now, the more aggressive a stance they can take now at this point in the game, the more likely they are to win. The more of an aggressive start they can take, while Israel is still lacking the mana to deal with it. So, in terms of running out of time, I think it's the other, or wanting to have more time, I think it's the other way around. I think Norway are running out of time to make these power plays.
Okay, I can see that.
And so they did go for the Lich King. And, ooh, King Crush, Terrascal Stalker, and Spirit Singer Umbra are the choices here.
I love Umbra in this deck.
Not going to make much of a difference this game, unfortunately.
No, it's just such a good 4-drop in the deck. Watch Fino playing quite a lot of that, teammate, of course, of Glazer, and it seems very powerful. Just because the deck doesn't have very good turn 4s outside of Chain Gang, and that's not always the best turn 4. So playing something that has to be dealt with.
The Lich King survived. The aggressive play has paid off, and now Faceless Manipulator is looking like a very real option, getting 2 more Death Knight cards. Can even play Spreading Plague as well this turn. He could start with Spreading Plague and coin out Faceless.
Yeah, he's going to have to do something like that if he goes with the Faceless play, just to make room in hand. Because getting 2 Death Knight cards a turn is lovely and all, but you do need to make sure you make the space for them.
Does he want to, if he's playing a second Lich King, does he want to protect it though? Because the issue is both of the 5/5s could just trade into both of the Lich Kings. So if he naturalizes a 5/5, that means that one of the Lich Kings might survive. Like Faceless naturalize Hero Power the 3/3. is another potential way of just winning the game without even thinking about Malygos.
They've also got to think what to do about this egg, because it could get nasty in a hurry.
Death
could.
is eternal.
That's true.
My turn.
Well, this deals with the short-term version.
All right.
And I think this is one of those plays where they saw this instantly and then thought about what's better and found nothing.
If you can ever faceless one of your own Lich Kings and you have 2 on the board, it's usually at least worth considering. And although, as I mentioned, Israel can deal with these easily, they're going to have to play around all 3 of these.
Anti-magic shell.
An anti-magic shell is potentially the best one in Druid because of Spreading Plague. Double Death Grip. How much does NTR actually want Hunter cards, though?
Yeah, I don't think they're particularly happy about those.
If they were both Death and Decay, it would be a whole other story.
You wouldn't mind King Crush.
King Crush has been discarded by tracking.
Mm.
They don't know this, obviously.
Hard turn for Israel because they've got to factor in 3 Lich King cards. There's a very good chance there's damage of some sort in hand. It'd be incredible if there wasn't. If you count Anti-Magic Shell, Frostmourne, etc. Death and Decay. But this is almost like, should be called Big Hunter at times.
Damage available to NTR now with the Anti-Magic Shell. Hero powering up as well would mean that, would make it 12 damage.
There's some more.
Vipe is now 16 damage. So this would set up a 2-turn kill with Ultimate Infestation next turn. It's not bad, is it?
They've got so much to consider here. It's not bad at all. But obviously Grizzlies are a big threat in terms of just stodging things up, so...
A tangled web.
They've got Malygos Moonfire at any point. Can they make anything better out of the Malygos? I think every turn you're looking, can we get Malygos on the board and it stay there?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it that way, this is as good a turn as any to try and set that up. The issue with the 2-turn lethal setup that I described before is obviously, we can see there's Dusty of the Rexar in the hand, so it doesn't necessarily work. Norway going to go for it anyway, feeling like their chances are high.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a lot to both deal with and to have some sort of attack going on.
But Rexar does it, right? Rexar will assist with the trades whilst gaining 5 armor, meaning that Alila gets to keep his board, deal with the whole of NTRs, and he's just out of lethal range from Ultimate Infestation.
Pew pew pew.
It does mean, though, that if Norway pick up the second Moonfire, then they will just win very soon.
Yeah, and it's another turn where they can't play the Grizzly, of course.
Israel going to be looking for lifesteal from their Builder Beasts pretty urgently. They had the Beetle there as their first choice. I'm not sure if they actually went with it. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, cheap things tend to be good anyway because your cards cost so much. You end up, you want to hero power every turn, you want to play 2 cards every turn, otherwise you're just not getting anywhere fast. Although obviously hero power into good beast every turn is a thing that we've all lost to.
Yeah. But Israel just want anything that gains them health, anything that gains them armor, anything that can get them out of range of Malygos Moonfire plus other turns of hero powers, etc. Norway can hero power Israel down this turn, putting them back down to 6.
Yeah, and starting to run out of ways. They're not running out of ways. This deck doesn't run out of things quickly, but starting to run out of ways to win the game. Obviously, there's plenty more waves of this where this came from. When you're looking on the other side with Spreading Plagues and such like to stall.
Oh boy. So I said that NTR's hero power now puts Israel down to 6. Ultimate Infestation doesn't deal 6 damage, but Malygos Moonfire does. So again, we have a 2-turn lethal setup available.
My turn is not.
Norway are never dead on board here, so they just go for it.
Yep, seems good. And unless there's some... By not playing a minion as well, they can't be rushed into for lifesteals to activate. So there's something absolutely nuts going on here. Next turn will be fatal.
Valila are going to need to get something. Well, even Lifesteal rushes are no good because there's no minion to rush into.
What are the stats on the Beetle? They're bigger than the 2-3, right?
Yeah.
Didn't get a 0-0.
No.
So they can't flanking strike their own Beetle.
No, I think they're 3-4. I think it's the 3-4.
I mean, it's big enough anyway. It's more, you can't get a minion with 0 health.
I think it's a 3-4 plated beetle that has Wind Fury.
That's the sort of minion I'd design. It's called a spell.
No, none of these cards steal life. None of the first 3 did either. Pretty much got the same card again. Life Drinker would have been a card that could get Valila out of this, but none of these do it. And it's looking like NTR, Hunter Race, Zorkthar, and Calbane, between them, have managed to get this 3-0 victory. One of the very few 3-0 victories that we've seen in the Hearthstone Global Games. As we see, he picks up Swipe as well, so Swipe Hero Power, even without the Malygos, would have gotten the job done. Norway have done it. They've managed to get their first win on the board, finishing this Swiss round at 1-1. Israel, Glacier going to struggle now, joining Team USA on 0-2.
Yeah, and they won't want that match next week. I mean, Glazer tweeted this week that this is the team he didn't want, not just because Norway are so good, but because it's a team full of friends, so one of you's going to lose. And those situations in Swiss where you're playing a friend are always bad, because you know you're both hoping to win every single game.
Yep.
And the fact that it's a zero-sum game, one of you wins, one of you loses, is just not good enough when you're trying to get to 4-2. So, depressing week for Israel, fantastic week for Norway.
Yeah, Norway are good. They're in the same position as the United Kingdom. Can't complain about that, right?
Sure.
Maybe they can
And NTR is on both sides because he put his ball control has got NTR in the middle. So there you go.
I don't know if that's how it works. Let's take a look one more time at the matchup that we just watched and the annihilation of Team Israel by Norway. Hunter beating Shaman, Priest beating Druid, and then Norway's Druid winning the slightly unfavorable matchup against Valila's Hunter there.
Yeah, when you look at the screen like that, it looks like a massacre, but actually it was a massacre.
I'd just like to remind everyone watching, Wild Growth, Nourish, Ultimate Infestation, and Malfurion and Arcane Tyrant all squeezed into the first few turns.
Let's remind everybody watching of what else went down. That double egg Void Ripper was a big deal, set up from several turns out, and just meant that even though Israel had a decent hand with the Shudderwock, they were just never really looking like getting it done.
No, I mean, they had about as good a hand as they could get. They got all of the tools they needed to complete that combo, but they just weren't able to make it to turn 9. Maybe some more healing would have been helpful.
This play was cool, knowing that they still had to... No, it was the play before where they stole the Alex Straz was cool because they knew they still had to deal with a Malygos later on, but also knew that the minions they put on the board were going to be able to deal with the Malygos, and they still had backup of the Primordial Drake to deal with the Spreading Plague.
And look at just that opening hand. I mean, Hunter's was good as well. Like I said, for all intents and purposes, that Hunter start should have beaten any deck, but that Druid start, I don't think I've seen one like it before in the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, and as you said during the cast here, Norway just trying to get that beat down on very, very quickly, and that's exactly what they managed to do. Setting up the Malygos, took all the pressure off the Malygos like we were talking about, and Malygos having the easiest of jobs just to enhance one Fiery Moon.
Yeah, Israel failing to get anything that could restore any health. And to be fair, I think it was just Life Drinker. I believe that was the only option. As again, there was nothing for Vicious Scalehide to rush into if they did get one of the Rush Lifesteal minions. But there you go, Norway do take the first series of the day with a very convincing 3-0 sweep. We have 4 more series coming up today here in the Hearthstone Global Games, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.